Grey Dawning was really, really good in the Trusted Trader. Hampton Novices Chase, Grade 2, over 3 miles, soft ground at Warwick. He's absolutely demolished the horse that we talked about in depth on the show last week, George, in Broadway Boy. Demolished another horse that we talked in depth about, Apples Away. I'd imagine Mare's Chase for her remains the plan, or at least maybe their minds are more focused that that's the route that they're going to go. But Grey Dawning has got to be a serious contender for whichever Cheltenham Festival target he goes for. And I would imagine it's most likely the Brown Advisory, assuming they bring him there, George.
Yeah. I thought main thing to take out of it was that he jumped better in the hole. I didn't really like what he did at last 2 fences. Seems like if he has a bit of daylight, he just, sort of takes his eye off the fence, or I don't really know what happened with him. I would say the second and the third did for each other a little bit. Like Apple Away and Broadway Boy probably took each other on for the first circuit. Broadway Boy backed off him for about 3-4 fences, and then took her on again at the end of the back straight. And Apple Away got taken sort of left and sort of slammed off the side of the fence by Grey Dawning at the second last. But I think he was sort of done for anyway with the effort of seeing off Broadway Boy. So I just take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Like Grey Dawning was excellent, but I think the second and third probably beat each other in the end. It was an excellent race to watch though. Like 3 excellent rounds of jumping from all of the first 3 home. I really enjoyed seeing it. Broadway Boy showed off that he can get a little low now and again, but doesn't seem to slow him down at all. Like it's bizarre. He'll always take one halfway up, and it just doesn't seem to even break his stride, which isn't particularly what you want as a jockey, because they just keep doing it then. But Apple Away, I was really impressed by her. She put in a magic round of jumping. I think if she hadn't been taken on for the lead, she could have maybe served it up to Grey Dawning a little more than she was able to. But I think it's got to be remembered that they went hammer and tongs for quite a long way, the second and the third.
Broadway Boy, Katie, is surely headed to the Ultima now. They don't seem to want to run him in the National Hunt Chase. He's not going to be good enough to win a Brown Advisory, so go for the handicap. And Novices have got a good record in it.
Yeah, I think he probably took a step backwards here after kind of improving with every run so far this term. He just couldn't sustain the lead at that gallop that they set between himself and Apple Away. That good gallop, seen him to good effect at Cheltenham recently, though, and maybe a return back to his beloved track and a stiffer test at Cheltenham may see him to better effect. I'm not sure, but he would want to bounce back to kind of a personal best to be competitive in the Grade 1. The Ultima now kind of, I thought, would be on his radar after that performance. I was a bit disappointed to see him beaten 32 lengths.
Yeah.
But look, somehow they can have an off day and we'll give them that. But I'm hoping that a return to Cheltenham will just bring out the best in him. And I'm not giving up hope just yet. I think there's another good pot in him. Not sure which race, but it looks less like there's going to be the Brown Advisory now.
Oh, take him to the Ultima. Take him to the Ultima and let him showcase what he can do.
And the Irish can't win the Ultima either. So.
No, we've got a horrible record in it, George. It's a very good point. We couldn't even win it with Fast or Slow, who can win 2 Grade 1s in his next 2 starts and beat Galopin de Champs in both of them, but he couldn't win the Ultima. So if that doesn't tell you that's not a race for the Irish, I don't know what to tell you. I'm amazed Grey Dawning is as big a price as he is for the Brown Advisory. I really like this performance, and I interviewed both Skeltons around this time last year about this fella because I really liked him as a novice hurdler, and they were mad keen to not go to Cheltenham. They didn't want to go there because they knew that really the only target he'd have a chance in is the potato race, and that can be quite hard on novices. So they took him to Aintree where he fell instead. Who knows what he would have done that day if he'd stood up. He fell way too far out. But they weren't saying that they'd never go to Cheltenham. And I think this is becoming a popular thing. Just skip it with your novice hurdle season, but go as a chaser. And he was the clear ratings pick for this race. So before the race, he had a major chance of winning, and he was very well backed on a day where everything Dan Skelton was running seemed to win. It was incredible stuff from him on the Saturday. But again, his rating going into the Brown Advisory would be very high, and yet he's being completely underestimated in the betting. If this is, it's a cliche, but if this fella's trained by Willie Mullins, he would be significantly shorter for the Brown Advisory.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you there. I do think his jumping might let him down. I know he was much better this weekend, but he was particularly bad at a few at Cheltenham previous. He does jump a bit left. He's going left-handed at Cheltenham, so that shouldn't be a hindrance to him there. But I think if he could straighten out his jumping, he can be a leading player in this kind of sphere. But I just don't know whether you could have the confidence in his jumping to be competitive at Cheltenham. Like you wouldn't want to use the beat round Cheltenham over fences in that race. I just have my doubts with him there a little bit, but I do think he has plenty of ability in the tank. And if he can just iron out his jumping, he'd be a major contender. I think you could note as well that Dan Skelton's are kind of starting to hit back at top form again. I think he was a bit quiet kind of November time last year, and he kind of said that himself, that his horses were running a bit quiet, but he had a great day on Saturday, and things are kind of looking up for his yard coming into Cheltenham.
I think he gets unbalanced around Cheltenham. I think that's where the jumping problems come in. You look like all his best performances have been on either sort of like more galloping sort of tracks like Haydock, Warwick. His only win at a more undulating track has been at Exeter, and it was in a novice hurdle. I presume probably wasn't up to much. And he beat Lallygag a length and a quarter. But yeah, I wonder if that's where his jumping falls to bits, where he just gets on his head a bit going up and down hill. I know Warwick has the one hill, but there's no jumping to be done anywhere near it. Do you know what I mean? It's it is a track that suits gallopers, and I just have a question mark in my mind about Cheltenham really for him. I just wanted to make sure I got that across, that Cheltenham just might not be his track, especially with you saying that they were desperate not to run him there before. It could be a big part of it.
Yeah, I got the impression from them last year it was just more a case of they really didn't want to run him in the potato race, and that was the most suitable race for him. But that can be seen as a race that just is a little bit too stamina sapping, so they decided to go to Aintree instead, which is where they were taking on Stay Away Faye, the winner of the potato race.
I'd say Stay Away Faye's got a lot to do with his price as well. Like a lot of these markets just work as well. He's been beat by Stay Away Faye. Stay Away Faye's going to be running in the Brown Advisory, therefore he can't win it. Do you know what I mean? I've actually heard Rory Delaghi say it quite a few times. People get very carried away with horse X has beaten horse Y, and therefore horse Y will never beat horse X. I'd say that's a large part why such a big price. But
from what I understand, Stay Away Faye's not going for the Brown Advisory. He's going for the Gold Cup.
No.
It's just dependent on how he gets on in the Cotswold Chase. And it's almost as if people just don't want to believe that. And so they decide, oh, that's not true. Like Willie Mullins has effectively already said, we're going for the Turners with fact to file. And yet the betting is still, he's 5-1 for the Brown Advisory and 12-1 for the Turners. It's just, there's a perception about what a horse is. And then the market leans into that perception. People look at the betting markets. They see a horse at a shorter price, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everyone just goes, oh, well, that must be what they're going to do. But it's not. It's not necessarily what they'll do. I thought this was a really nice performance. I guess the thing that would be confusing about it as well, George, is I think it was more about the fences than the track. But the defeat to Ginny's Destiny just leaves you scratching your head going, what? How? He made a key error at a crucial time. And he's made a key error at the last in this race, but he's got away with it. If he makes a mistake like that against Grange Clare West, he'll have his goose cooked. But he's coming along all the time. I've still only have eyes for Hermes Allen in that race, but he should be getting a little bit more recognition than he's getting, in my opinion. It's 21 years since Jimmy Mangan won the Grand National with Monty's Pass, but he's back in the big time with Spillane's Tower. He's a wonderful trainer, a very, very talented trainer. Not necessarily known for elite grade 1 novices, but he's got one in Spillane's Tower, Katie. And, well, what about Willie Mullins? What an absolute mess he's made of these novice chasers. He could He could have won the Arkle with Imperi Pass, but oh no, they had to go and try and beat Constitution Hill. And that's toast now. They can't beat State Man. He can't beat Constitution Hill. Therefore, Imperi Pass, not good enough. Facile Vega, not good enough. Blood Destiny, not good enough. Mr. Policeman, not good enough. The one horse in his yard who could have won him an Arkle isn't jumping fences yet. Easy in hindsight, but Willie Mullins wrecked his chances of winning the Arkle. Take it away, Katie.
Yeah, I think probably Willie's kicking himself now that maybe he didn't run Imperial Pass over fences this year. It's probably
a wasted season over hurdles.
I'd say it's probably the first year in recent times that probably Willie doesn't have a dominant figure going into this race. But Mr. Policeman and Blood Destiny are rather disappointing going forward for this race at the weekend. I could see him potentially maybe diverting Gaelic Warrior here. Unlikely, but I don't think Facile Vega will turn up for the Arkle. I think he'll probably more likely run in the Turners. I think a step up and trip would suit him. I think Ilete Tomps might be kind of a backup option for this race now. I was looking through, and Gaelic Warrior and Ilete Tomps are kind of the two that are standing out for me, for Willie, for the Arkle. But I don't know if they wouldn't even be. I don't think they'd be good enough to trouble Marine Nationale over that trip at Cheltenham in the Arkle. So I don't know if he'd be winning it this year now. But look, going back to Spillane's Tower, he was very, very good. He just completely outstayed Blood Destiny, and he kind of just put him to bed very quickly. I just think he kind of took advantage of that a strong early gallop, and yeah, he kind of picked up the pieces when the race kind of fell apart. I don't think this fella will go to Cheltenham. I'd be very surprised if Connections took him there. I think they'll probably keep him at home. There's plenty of races to be won this side of the sea, and I don't know if he doesn't look to me as a standout candidate for Cheltenham. I think he's still plenty to learn, and he's still getting there now. And like I said, there's plenty of nice pots to be won this side of the Irish Sea. Blood Destiny just didn't stay on the day, but he looked as though to me in Nace that he wanted every yard of 2.5. So it's a bit of a muddle to me, because he looked like he didn't stay to 2 Mile Tree at the weekend. So I don't quite know where to have him now. Nothing really went wrong from the race. He settled well. He jumped well out in front. Jack applied the pressure, sat in his boot again. He never looked keen any part of the race. I just don't think he had the answers to the questions that were asked of him on the day. I don't know where Connections is going to go with him now. Is he just a handicapper at best, and does he fall apart in graded company? Is what I'm thinking with him.
Well, he fell apart in the Triumph.
Yeah.
And he didn't exactly re-enhance his reputation with his run in Fairyhouse, but they still thought the world of him. He's come out and had a very impressive Novice Chase debut. I was really impressed with that performance against Hartwood. And then he's taken on in this race and falls to pieces again. Yeah. I don't think it's particularly sterling stuff with him. You could argue that he's done an awful lot right for a long way, and if you drop him back to 2 miles, he'll have a better chance. But drop him back to 2 miles, he's going to be facing Marine Nationale, and if he stands up, he'll just destroy him. Yeah. So I think we kind of got our answer as to who Blood Destiny really is. It's not an elite Grade 1 performer, but he might win a nice big race someday. I don't think it's going to be this season. It's also going to be difficult for him with his age. For a 5-year-old, I was almost looking at that as a positive last week, and we can overreact. Which, by the way, if you're new to the show and you're not familiar with my sarcastic ways, I'm obviously being completely sarcastic about Imperial Pass, but I'm kind of only been half sarcastic. I would think, George, there's a part of Willie Mullins that is really kicking himself. He couldn't possibly have envisaged that Mr. Policeman needs headgear in 4 miles to be able to go and win any kind of a race. I'm sure they thought he was going to be a really nice contender. And if they couldn't rely on him, well, it didn't matter. They still had Facile Vega. And if they couldn't rely on him, well, it doesn't matter. We still got Blood Destiny. And it kind of doesn't matter because they've still got Il Était Temps and Hunter's Yarn. But still, hasn't quite gone to plan.
No, I stick by what I've said the whole time. I think Gaelic Warrior should go there.
I would think
he's running out of options.
Way more likely now.
He's running out of options, isn't he? But I wouldn't entirely give up on Blood Destiny. Like you already said, the alternative view to it is stepping back to 2 miles. And I'm not saying he's going to step back to 2 miles and win Arkle, but he might be better. Let's say, like he did, like you said, he did an awful lot right for a long way. He travelled strongly, jumped great, and he's just empty very quickly. Like he's either got a hole in him or he wants 2 miles. It seems strange to me that he's had both of his starts over further than 2 miles this year. Willie obviously thought he was going to be turned into a stayer, but nothing I've seen on the race course makes me think he wants any further than 2 miles. Especially, like I said, I don't think he stayed in the Triumph from sitting too close to a quick pace. If anything, that was too much of a stamina test for him. So I wouldn't give up on him altogether. I wouldn't be backing him next time at 2 miles, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's a horse to give up on. But it shouldn't take anything away from the winner. Like he's obviously going to make a lovely staying chaser in time. Like he was probably one of the first sort of horses that mattered that was off the bridle, if that makes sense. You know, not disparaging the others, but there was 200 to 1 shot that was off the bridle the whole way. But he was the first of the horses that were actually in touch, going to sort of 4 out to come off the bridle, and he stayed on very strongly. And besides that, Blood Destiny's beaten the others a decent margin. We say another one of Gordon Elliott's finishing very weakly. Don't know if he maybe...
There is no world in which Imagine should be beaten 25 lengths in this.
No, that's too bad. Like if you took that seriously, you'd be saying Spillane's Tower is an absolute rocket. But you shouldn't be getting beat 25 lengths. You can't take that seriously. But I wouldn't give up on Blood Destiny, and looking forward to the future with Spillane's Tower. I say it'd make a lovely 3 mile chaser in time.
Yeah, I would be very much in agreement though with Katie about proceeding with caution with him and with a view to the Cheltenham Festival. If I was to think of an ideal target for him, I'd be saying Fairyhouse Gold Cup. It's worth a whole lot of money. I'm sure Willie's going to have something very exciting for it too. Might very well be the Turner's Novice Chase winner 2024 Fact to File. Galopin de Champs, when he fell in the Turners, went for the Fairyhouse Gold Cup. They might very well do the same thing, but JP's got a lovely team of horses and he's right up there. And I'm so thrilled for the Mangans as well, because Irish racing does have some incredibly talented people in it. They're one of them, but you need to have the ammunition to showcase how good you are, and they have it, and they're showcasing how good they are. So it's wonderful to see, and well done to all of them. Does Willie Mullins have a proper Arkle contender though in Hunter's Yarn, who when he jumps, he's very good. Thing is, he's made another bad mistake in this race, Katie, but he's managed to survive it. Is he quite good enough for Arkle? This is the good thing about the Willie Mullins production line. Facile Vega is not quite good enough. We think Mr. Policeman not quite good enough. Blood Destiny not quite good enough. Never mind, the production line's got another one ready-made for the Arkle here in Hunter's Yarn.
Yeah, this is just what Willie Mullins is all over. He's just got backups of Grade 1 horses there. If something falls to injury, he's another one there to back it up. So there's no shortage of talent in his yard. I thought he actually backed up his first run over fences where he looked as though he would have been a comfortable winner. Unfortunately, he took a tumble. However, he was 10-length winner over, I think it was 132 rated horse in behind him at the weekend in Path Darrow, which kind of puts him right in the frame for the 2 mile novice division. I think he's plenty of talent. Can be a little bit too enthusiastic at times, but I think if he can rein that in, it would probably help his jumping become a little more fluent. I thought it was actually quite an impressive display after a kind of a bad mistake at the second last. He did regain momentum quite easily enough to run out a commanding winner. I think if he was to be competitive in an Arkle, he'd have to step up a considerable amount to be kind of matching Marine Nationale. But with, like you said, Willie's kind of running out of options here, and I'd say he could well turn up here. He was never quite competitive at Grade 1 level over hurdles. He could be similar here, but yeah, I think probably the Arkle looks as though that'd be his route he'll be taking. We'll probably, I don't know. He could be a Grand Annual horse as well, but with the way Willie's Arkle team is faring out, he probably turn up there, I'd say.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt Grand Annual is on the agenda for this guy. Although this is a confidence boost to the 40-1 tip for the Arkle from you last week, because he's got form with Hercule de Soye.
Yeah.
Hercule de Soye put him in his place at Fairyhouse. So he's confirming that. And they also sent him off 11-2 for the county hurdle. It didn't quite pan out for him. In fact, it was disastrous. I should know. I backed him. It went horribly wrong. But I do suspect that he's better than we've seen so far. And that was a hard-held victory. So roll him onto the Irish Arkle. And then maybe as Willie continues to shuffle the pack, he'll find something that can go and beat Marine Nationale. But as things stand,
this horse won't get round in Arkle.
No, he'll probably tip up.
He'll tip up. He's a thug.
Yeah.
He's obviously a thug with plenty of ability, but he has zero respect for his fences. He looks like an absolute nightmare of a ride. Like he's keen, he's taking you, but even he can see when he has to shorten, he doesn't. He just sort of just takes on these fences. He's got to learn to back off. And as a horse that's already had a fall that's still doing that would worry me massively. Like,
Galopin Des Champs.
They learn from a fall, you know?
Probably the best thing that happened to Galopin Des Champs is that he had that bizarre fall in the Turners, because it just put manners on him. He realized, I can't be this keen in races if I'm going to win Grade 1s. Dicer Dynamo hasn't learned, though. Dicer Dynamo will kill Danny Mullins one of these days if he keeps doing what he's doing. And Hunter's Yarn seems like he's learning. He's clearly hanging out with Dicer Dynamo and not hanging out with Galopin Des Champs. He's learning from the wrong horse.
And he's by Fame and Glory as well. Which, well, you just got to look at Farron Glory. Nearly put himself on the deck in the Royal Bond, and then did the exact same thing in whatever they call the Tolworth now. And
Formby, yeah,
that's it. And he did tip up. It was the exact same thing that he's done both times. They can be proper ignorant so-and-sos, Fame and Glories. They can be a bit strange. I just think of one I have to ride every day at the minute. I don't particularly like. But
are they easier and nicer to be around than Scorpions, George?
There's not much in it.
I think Fame and Glories have more ability, though.
But I said, they definitely got more ability. But you got to bear in mind, I'm riding the cheap ones. I'm not riding the expensive ones. So often my view of a sire is predicated around what the 20 grand or 30 grand versions of them look like.
That Monjou bloodline's got a lot to answer for. Like, it did give us the brilliance of Hurricane Fly, but it's also given us some right nasty ones over the years. We'll see if he learns. I'd imagine Irish Arkle next and roll him on, but certainly another one for Willie Mullins. Jamie Snowden is fast becoming one of my favorite trainers. The man's absolute genius. And Colonel Harry, back in the Winners' Enclosure Forum over the weekend in the Cheltenham Novices Chase at Grade 2. And it's a Grade 1 next, George. He's going to go for the Sicily Isles Novice Chase. Is he capable of winning a big one this season?
I couldn't have a more different opinion to the last horse I talked about. I thought this horse looked like the most fun horse to ride out of anything I saw the whole weekend. He was magic. He was that good. He's taking you into fences, and he is a little bit keen. He's got quite a low head carriage. He's on it. But he has so much scope that it never made a difference. There'd be the odd fence you're like, oh, he's going to have to shorten up here. And he just take an extra stride out. Like, there was one where he actually did shorten, and he just sort of brushed through the top. He was fine. Obviously, he's been done a lot of favours by Trelawney trying to run off the track twice. It's ultimately sort of in terms of how you view this race, in terms of who beat who, how far, it's worthless, like with what Trelawney did on the way around. But Colonel Harry had to be there to pick up the pieces. He did. Gavin Sheehan did well to make sure he didn't end up on his outside. I think if he had managed to get down his inner sooner, he'd have beaten him a lot. He'd have beaten him a lot further. Yeah, I saw a lot of people questioning why David Bass was going to Wetherby to ride this horse instead of it. Like Kim Bailey had much better runners elsewhere, and I very much had the opinion going into this that maybe Kim Bailey thought that David Bass had to be on Trelawney. I think it was sort of proven right that you wouldn't have wanted someone who didn't know him on him, or could have been a real disaster. You know, other than racing wise, there could have been an accident. But yeah, Colonel Harry's fantastic. Not sure really what the form of it was worth, but I hope it's a lot, because obviously he was beaten by Lepatra on the last day in the Grade 1 at Sandown. So hopefully this horse can kick on and be a real good one, and our horse can kick on and win another Grade 1.
Yeah, no, I'd completely echo all of that. I think Colonel Harry's a lovely horse. I'm sure he'll win a big race this season. Whether it'll be at Cheltenham or Aintree, I guess the Cicely Isles Novice Chase may very well be the race that will decide his spring target.
Proper old school pedigree as well, out of a Be My Native mare. That's Be My Native is a proper stallion. Like we had a few of them at ours at pointing. Like that's proper old school. The dark bays with the four muzzles, there were loads of them, and I love seeing these horses pop up now and again, like the old names of sires that you grew up with. So it's nice to see him carrying the flag in a way for Be My Native.
Yeah, you're talking about real old-fashioned national hunt stock there. Yeah. Proper jumps racing pedigrees. None of this flat nonsense. None of this flashy Galileos coming in there. No, very, very, very interesting. And again, Jamie Snowden, just absolute mustard. It's been a difficult enough campaign for Kim Bailey, but the horses do seem to be turning the corner and coming back to themselves. Quilixios. So again, William Mullins wasn't exactly great stuff for him with the novice hurdlers. Not so great with the novice chasers. So Mr. Policeman heading down the National Hunt Chase route, or going for a Midlands Grand National, Katie. That's about his only chance to be able to go and win one. I thought Willie summed it up best himself. Yeah, that's that bubble well and truly burst, at least over this distance. But Quilixios, the bubble well and truly back.
Yeah, I think Mr. Policeman looks like he was the hype horse at best here, and has not really stamped his authority over fences this term. He might be a spring horse, bear that in mind, but I think his reputation is long gone now. Quilixios, on the other hand, looks a dream to ride here. You could argue he's probably not been the most consistent horse of late, but he kind of got his act together here and was pretty convincing winner of the Novice Chase. Saffron, Mr. Policeman, no match for him on the day. Travelled well, jumped well. I think the key with him was the step back from the 3 mile trip back to over 2 miles, seen him to really good effect here. This looks like it's probably his best trip. I thought 2.5 going forward might suit him down to ground, but he looked brilliant over 2 mile here. I don't think he'll be any match for Marine Nationale. However, I think they're well able to take their chance with him here, and I don't think there's anywhere else they could go with him. I think his jumping is very, very good, and this will help him around Cheltenham. I think he could be seen to really good effect through his jumping. 25 to 1, I think, around abouts there is massive price. And quite a wide open Arkle, if you take Marine Nationale out of it, he probably has a good each way chance. I just don't know if he'd be quite good enough to be competitive Marine Nationale. That'd be my only kind of doubt with him. But it was great to see him back to winning ways.
Yeah, I mean, the Arkle market has just continuously contracted each time these Willie Mullins horses have disappointed. So Marine Nationale is now 6 to 4 on, 8 to 13 on. Best price you're getting is 4 to 5 with Quinbet and Bet Goodwin. Everybody else is long odds on about him. Again, you both reiterated last week, there's a chance he goes straight to Cheltenham, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And if he does go straight there, I'd be taking him on. If he goes for the Irish Arkle, bolts up, then it's a division where you're desperately scrambling around to try and find something that can tackle Marine Nationale. They all keep falling by the wayside. Meanwhile, he's only had one run over fences.
I'd say what you get with Quilixios, though, is a horse that will travel and jump in the Arkle. Like, his jumping's improved massively from start to start. Like, he looked at the weekend like a horse that would have no problem laying up and putting in a clean round of jumping in Arkle. And he's an ex-Triumph hurdle winner. That's not quite back to his best, but not far off it, I would say. Safira is a proper horse. And yeah, at least with that horse, you can sort of go into it without those sort of glaring. That's what makes him an each way prospect. You really don't want one that's sort of boom or bust when you're betting in a race like the Arkle or the Champion Chase. You don't want to be backing one that could be on his backside at the second fence. You just want a clean round of jumping, and if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. Like, I'd much rather back this horse each way in the Arkle than Hunter's Yarn, because at least you're going to get a run for your money.
Yeah, I see the logic of that. The stable did win the Grand Annual last year, though, and I wonder if that's the route they'd choose to go down instead. What would you feel about that, George?
I think he might be a bit high in the weights after that. That's the only thing.
Probably.
That'd be my
Although,
problem.
mightn't be too bad. Mr. Policeman bombed out.
Yeah, usually the horse that wins the Grand Annual's, been given 3 fairly easy runs by this point in the season, haven't they?
Yeah.
Let's go to the older horses. Banbridge. Downs Pic D'Orhy, last year's winner of the Coral Silviniaco Conti Chase, Grade 2. He needs good to soft ground, or good ground, ideally. He got good to soft ground. If he gets this kind of a surface, he will go for the Ryanair Chase. And Joseph Ryan was quoted as saying he'd love to take Michael O'Leary's money. I can't remember how many horses he's training for Michael O'Leary these days, because he's pretty much doing away with the jumpers. But he's not doing away with this fella, because he's a very, very high-class horse. And as long as the ground is okay for him, he'll be a serious player in the Ryanair, Katie. Yeah,
I thought it was quite an impressive performance on his seasonal debut to kind of beat the race fit Pic D'Orhy. I think he was receiving £3 on the day to him. And you could say the last fence mistake kind of maybe cost Pic D'Orhy the race, but Banbridge looked as though he was staying on best everywhere. And I think he just took full advantage of this. I think he still probably would have won, even if he hadn't made that mistake. I just thought, very good performance. I think he'll be even better on spring ground as well. And I think he deserves to be the kind of high up in the betting for the Ryanair. I think he's kind of that written all over him. Edwardstone was kind of talked up to be a massive contender before this race, but I think that dream is well and truly gone with him now. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I'd say be back to the drawing board. He looked way too keen over 2.5. I don't know. It's kind of, it was really disappointing for me. I still think you can't take anything away from Banbridge on the day. Spring ground, Cheltenham, 2 out of 2 around Cheltenham. I think he's a real strong contender for this race.
As long as he gets his ground conditions, George. Yeah. He's a deadly racehorse. When he doesn't get his ground conditions, he's very vulnerable. So there's no point in running him on soft ground. They won't do that again. But Katie's right. His Cheltenham record is very good. He's 2 from 2 there. And he's a Martin Pipe winner. He's a Cheltenham Festival winner. And he's a serious player for the Ryanair.
Yeah,
ground permitting.
He has to be. Like you say, you can't back him anti-post because he probably won't even show up if it's any worse than good soft. Which doesn't tend to be at the festival, but the Thursday, by then, maybe. It tends to be the back end of the week if it gets soft, doesn't it?
Yeah, who knows what the ground is going to be like. We'll just melt each other's brains trying to work out what the going conditions are going to be like between now and then. But look, if he gets his ground, he'll be a huge player. Pic D'Orhy, he's going to go straight to entry, I would imagine, so we can leave him out for now, but he's still a proper Grade 1 performer. On Edwardstone, though, Katie was saying, what do you do with him? How do you solve a problem like Edwardstone?
I'd say he pulled too hard. He maybe would have finished a bit he's still going to be well beat, but he might have finished a bit closer to Janadil if he wasn't hampered by the faller at the last. I saw Tom Cannon reported that he hung left. I would be trying to target the Celebration Chase with him, because if he's going to pull too hard the Ryanair and he's not good enough to win the Champion Chase, he's sort of left in a real sort of funny situation. You don't want to run into any of those horses. I don't know where you take him in the meantime, but I'd be thinking his season culminates around the Celebration Chase now, where if he runs into a Captain Guinness or something like that, he'd still have a chance. You just hope John Bond doesn't go there.
Yeah, which he might not. John Bond might. We're going to see this weekend, assuming the racing actually goes ahead. If it does go ahead, then fantastic. We're going to get to see a 4-runner race in the Clarence House. But at least we get the two big guns, El Fabiolo and John Bond. Although, I don't know, maybe...
Larry.
And good old Larry's going to be there too. Man,
I can't let it go. I can't. Everyone's there to see Larry. What are you on about, Clarence House? It's all about the MGM Bet handicap chase, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's the real stellar showing. El Fabiolo coming over is just a sideshow for the feature race with Larry.
You'd be surprised the following he has there. I think people just like the fact there's a horse called that. I think he gets a big cheer every time he comes into the paddock.
Well, Ross Millar's got this journey now with his horse Roger, who's literally that's his name and nickname. The horse he sourced from Eastern Europe. Exciting times.
We've got to get him in the same race. We have to get him in the same race. Larry and
Roger versus Larry. Absolutely. Yeah.
Larry and Roger sounds like what a discontinued Beano comic, doesn't it?
the worst discontinued.
Larry and Roger. What will they do next?
I think you've got to go Champion Chase with Edward Stone and just hope that you can get him to bounce back again. This distance, he cannot pull that hard and get this trip. It's just not going to work well. So you're kind of stuck at going back to 2 miles and hoping that you can restore him to what he was. It's only a year ago that he was narrowly beaten in the Clarence House and had been a very impressive winner of the Dingle Creek. They can get him back there, but the standard with John Bond and El Fabiolo is very, very high. But if they'd run him in the King George and he pulled as hard as he did there, it would have been a disaster, darling. It was a disaster for poor Laura Morgan's not long till May. I'm so disappointed for them. Lovely, lovely horse and a real stable star and proper flag bearer for her yard. And he would have won a big race for them at some point, but there's no words. It's a brutal game at times. And the one thing I would say is that horse was loved and cared for and treated like a king and lived an incredible life. And the people who loved him most are the ones who are going to miss him the most as well. So thoughts with all of them, and particularly everybody involved in the Laura Morgan team and all of his fans. But that was a really devastating one. Finally, Champion Bumper winner 2024 will come from Gordon Elliott's yard. But who's going to win it, Katie Young? Will it be the fascinating Willie Mullins cast-off, who I think Michael O'Leary is going to get a great kick out of being able to go and win the Champion Bumper with a horse Willie Mullins once had and then went, nah, and handed back for Michael O'Leary to go along and pay over 470 grand for it. It's Jalan Dideri. Or will it be this hype job, Romeo Coolio, who apparently is a whole lot better than we saw at the weekend? But he'd need to be.
Yes, I was not overly taken by Romeo Coolio's performance, and I think I'd have Jalan Dideri's a lot higher up in the pecking order with him. He didn't do much wrong now, in fairness to him. Like, it was a tactical run affair. Like, it didn't suit him. They went a steady gallop and it kind of turned into a sprint. He won by about a length and a half, not much, to a horse that was probably, I think, second up and down Royal. Like, I don't know how, on paper, just the race didn't read good to me. I think as well, looking back to his point-to-point form, that's not reading well either. Spilacey's Cross was a horse that ran in his point-to-point. I think he pulled up or he finished last. He ran last week, didn't show much. Another horse that ran his point-to-point, a work in progress, showed little in 2 starts in the UK. He was only 8 lengths behind him on debut. I just have my doubts on how good he is, and is he good enough to win a Champion Bumper? Like, connections are kind of saying that he's going to be a stayer in time, and they're always looking forward to the future with him. I think he'd be vulnerable in the Champion Bumper, and I think Jean Duderis looks a much better prospect at this point of the season. I think it's kind of a bit of a muddle of a division. Like, there's not much kind of standing out. Like, there's a few horses running well on debut, and then they'll run in a race, a more difficult race, and they're kind of caught out a bit. He looks like he's kind of the one that's backing up his debut run, and he looks to be the most forward of these at this point in the season. Look, there could be horses to come out of the woodwork yet in the Woolly Mullins yard that we haven't seen or heard about, but at this point in time, he looks as though he should be the rightly favourite here. I think Golden Mountains, the Wingmen, are the kind of next best in RPRs. You'd want to be seeing them run again to see if they can back up their initial runs. But yeah, I'd be sticking with Jean Duderis at this point in time over Romeo Coolio.
Yeah, it's possible that Maureen
Yeah, she
the
was the
machine.
one.
Yeah, out of a half sister to Faugheen, absolutely bolted up today. A daughter of Walk in the Park. Maybe she's going to end up being Willie Mullins' #1 contender, but that could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the scars made. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Where are the
say
rotten
Nicky
silks though?
Henderson.
We don't get the
No.
Rich Ritchie pink silks.
I would say Nicky Henderson has one in on Sunday at Lingfield called Kingston Pride, who was very good in his point-to-point. Beat a horse called The Enabler. This with Gordon Elliott. It's won 2 out of his 3 bumper starts now. The last 2 by 6.5 lengths and 4 lengths. So I'd just keep an eye on him. His first run in the bumper. Like, they've obviously been waiting with him for a while. And I believe it is. Yeah, it's an all-weather bumper. So they obviously think he wants better ground. And that's why they've been waiting with him. But I think he's worth keeping an eye on anyway.
I wonder if Willie Mullins' best bumper horse has been beaten and everyone's just discarded him. Cantico, which is the exact thing that happened to Champagne Fever. Got beaten in, I think, the very same race at the Leopardstown Christmas meeting, then came out and won at, not the DRF because that wasn't in existence at the time, but at what is now the Dublin Racing Festival, and then went on to go and win the Champion Bumper under Patrick Mullins. Cantico might just be a whole lot better than we saw, and was running at a time when some Willie Mullins horses weren't quite performing to their best. So I wouldn't be too quick to rule him out. I'd want to see him go and win, but he was held in very high regard. He was very well supported in the market that day. Whereas Galopin de Champs Silks, maybe he'll turn out to be a whole lot better than we've seen so far. This wouldn't be... I'm not in a rush to have a bet on that market. I'm fascinated by Jalan Duderi. I'd be with Katie. But it's not a market that inspires confidence. Very much so.
Last year, like, you kind of had 2 or 3 horses there that were kind of really stamping their authority, whereas this year it's kind of like, oh yeah, they were impressive, but are they going to back up their debut runs? Do you know, there's nothing really. Like, he is the only horse that's standing out at this point in time, whereas kind of last year you had A Dream to Share, Factor File. There was 2 horses there that were kind of proven themselves, whereas he's the only one here, I think, at the moment that I kind of can say that.
Given they ran an arsenal, an entire army in the Champion Bumper last year, I'd imagine if they can get a win into Cantico between now and Cheltenham, he'll be on the plane and on the boat over, and 33-1 might just seem to be way too big a price. But the very fact that I'd be much more interested in backing him than Joystick. As far as confidence. Romeo Coolio looks a lovely long-term prospect. Just think a Champion Bumper might be a bit too much for him right now. Whereas Jalan Duderi
as well. It'd be a 3-miler.
That's a very good point to made as well. Yeah, stamina is going to be his forte. Is surely the fact that Jalan Duderi is going for the Champion Bumper is a tip in itself. Michael and Eddie O'Leary hate the Champion Bumper. They hate it. They actively rail against running horses in it every single year. And yet Michael O'Leary's like, yeah, no, we're going to go for it. This is Gordon's #1 for the Champion Bumper. He's confirmed for the race already. And Kickinstown hate the race. So surely this is the horse they feel is best qualified to go and win.
They must be very confident it's going to be the right race for him. So they spent a lot of money on him if they to go and send him there if it was going to ruin him. Do you know what I mean? They must be confident that he's going to take it in his stride as much as just be competitive.
They sent Kings of Kingsfield there last year, didn't they? And they did run him.
That's true.
He didn't.
That's a good point, actually. Maybe Michael O'Leary is softening in his old age. Sorry, Michael. But maybe there's a softer edge coming to him now. Maybe he's starting to develop a love affair with the champion bumper. Who knows? These connections. All right, that's it. We are back with you again next week on the Final Furlong podcast. I believe we're going to be doing some content during the week with some special guests. So hopefully you can join us for that and enjoy it. But in the meantime, Katie Young, thank you so much for your company. George Gorman, thank you so much for your company. I really enjoyed the insight. If you've enjoyed this, like, shares, and subscribe would be much appreciated. On your favorite podcast app, a 5-star rating. It'll only take you 60 seconds, and it's the only thing we're asking you for. And if you haven't subscribed to the Final Furlong podcast on YouTube, hit that subscribe button now to never miss any of the content. More from Katie, George, and myself very, very soon in the Final Furlong podcast. Till then, be safe, be well, look after yourself and each other. God bless.